Well, hello there. My name's Peter Stikey, and I'm filling in for a couple of weeks for you in this Easter season. Andy's taking a well-earned break. In fact, I was with you last Easter as well, when Andy was crook, and also on the Sunday after Easter, where we looked at the Gospel according to John and the account of Jesus and Thomas, which we're looking at today. I've got to say, Easter is my favourite season of the year. And Easter Sunday is my favourite day, which makes every day my favourite day because every day is Easter. You know, we could say that on the cross, Jesus enacted God's promises. I have behind me here, which I'll just bring over, a cross made by a Lutheran pastor called Leon Rosenberg. It's called an embracing cross. And if I hold it side on, you can see why. Because it's cut out of a piece of wood, or carved, hewn out of a piece of wood that shows the embrace. And on the cross, Jesus spread his arms to bring the Father's embrace to you and me. So Good Friday, Jesus' life, his death, his obedience to the Father, that's when he enacted God's promises. But Easter Sunday is the day they were verified. All the promises in the world mean nothing if the person that gives them is dead. And that's what separates Christianity from every other religion in the world. It's also what frees us and liberates us. And so today, here at Aberfoyle Park in South Australia, we're going to be looking at how Easter and the resurrection and the encounter that Jesus has with Thomas and with you sets us free from the labels that we place on ourselves and the labels that other people place on us. The things that we impose upon ourselves that hold us back and stop us from living in the fullness of all that Jesus has set us free from. You know, I'm being a little bit disobedient because Andy rang me during the week, Pastor Andy, and he said, Pete, we've seen that there's too much material going out, so we want to tie in the video with the notes that go out. Well, the subject on this video is going to be the same, but the examples are going to be different. But that's okay. You see, when you read the Bible, you are going to a menu. The Bible's a meal. It's a huge, great big meal. It's a love feast that Father puts down in front of us. But you can't eat it all at once. So you open up and you go to John. You can't eat all of John at once, so you go to chapter 20. You can't eat all of that at once, so you go to the section we're going to look at today. It's like a menu. You know, when you go to a worship service in a church building, it's not a menu. You turn up and you get what's served to you. So what's coming out through the emails, through this video, through the note, it's like a menu. During the week, you can do some of the children's stuff. Adults, the children's stuff's good for you too. And children, or parents, you know, the story that comes with the notes that is an excerpt from my book, Suddenly, you can also read that to your kids. So you don't have to do this all at once. It's not just 1 hour and then we're done for the week. I reckon one of the blessings of the coronavirus, and please, I don't wish it on anyone, and I'm devastated like you are about the deaths and the destruction it's causing. But one good thing it's doing is it's causing us to take increasing responsibility for our spiritual growth. It's not just what Andy gives me on a Sunday, but what Holy Spirit gives me all the time. So as we look at breaking free from the labels, we see that Thomas was given the label of Doubting Thomas. And if you read the notes that I've attached, you'll see how I think that's a little bit unfair. But I'm going to talk to you about a friend of mine, and Julie's, called Martin. Martin lives in Ipswich in Queensland, and he came to a conference at Ipswich where I was the presenter 2 years ago now. He loved the teaching all day Saturday, and in the service on the Sunday, I invited people to come forward and lay at the foot of the cross things that have been holding them back in their relationship with Jesus. Well, Martin said, this won't work for me because I don't hear anything from God, but, you know, I'm a leader in the congregation, so I'll come forward and take part. So he came forward and he stood at the foot of the cross and he said, well, Jesus, have you got anything? And not expecting to hear anything, straight away, he heard the word reticent. Oh, okay. So he went to the foot of the cross and he said, Jesus, I give to you being reticent. Now, it also asked them to take away from the cross and away from the empty tomb, the opposite of whatever it was they laid there. So he then said, Jesus, what would you like me to receive? And he got 2 words instead of 1 word. He laid down reticent, and the 2 words he got was not reticent. Wow. You know, in terms of faith, he thought, yep, I am the reticent one. What about you? What labels have you put on yourself? Is there a negative or derogatory way in which you see yourself? You know, the fearful one, or the angry one, or the clumsy one, or the one who doesn't know as much as other people, the person with nothing to offer, the noisy one, the quiet one. You know, the week following that conference, Martin and his wife Pauline went along to their small group, and for the first time ever in his life, his mid-60s, for the first time ever, he prayed out loud. He hardly slept all that week. There were stirrings on inside of him. All his life he'd gone to church because that's what you do. But now he said that there was a hunger inside of him. He had questions that he wanted answers to. Not questions like who is God and where is God, but deeper questions about intimacy and hope and life and serving and witnessing. So what if you and I saw Thomas's statement of I will not believe unless I see as a precursor to growth rather than a blockage? Would you agree that many of your greatest spiritual advancements in life occurred after a time of struggle or doubt or denial or disappointment? I think many of us would. And the Holy Spirit He loves turning refuse and rubbish and scraps into compost that will then feed. So whatever it is that's been negative in your life, whether like Thomas it's doubting, the Holy Spirit can turn that around. That's his job. He's the helper. That's what he loves to do. Now Martin and Pauline were so keen that they turned up at another conference I was leading the following weekend on the other side of Brisbane. I met them at the morning tea break and they came up and said, "Hi, we're Martin and Pauline. You may remember us from last weekend." And I said, "I remember. How come you're back?" And he said, "Well, I only found out this was on late last night. So this morning we woke up early and across we came and here we are." And then he told me the story about the reticent example and how he prayed during the week. Well, you don't tell me a story like that at a conference. Straight after the break, I got him up to the microphone and asked him to share the story publicly, and he did. No longer reticent. They're flowing down to our place twice since. We've had some retreats together. We've introduced them to other friends of ours. Martin is now looking for opportunities in their wider church community to connect other people with other people and ultimately with Jesus during this time where the church building is shut down. He's a totally transformed person, completely the opposite of reticent. The Holy Spirit is in the transforming business. One of the things that's happened to Martin is that his prayer life has been transformed. When he prays, he just opens his mouth and says, "Hi, Dad," and lets the conversation go from there. They went on a holiday last year overseas and intentionally engaged people with their testimony to life in Jesus. They are now still in correspondence with 3 people about Jesus. He sent a couple of my books and some other material to a guy who was working in one of the Arabic countries and hasn't seen his wife and family for a year and a half. You know, when we label people like Thomas, we are locking them in to the worst opinion of themselves. When we label ourselves, we're doing the same. And the resurrected Jesus, he comes with keys. He comes close. He comes alongside. And as he comes alongside, he breaks us out of the stigma that we've placed ourselves under and the stigma we've been living under and the stigma we've been living out of. And he sets us free to live into the future. I encourage you to look at the notes either now or sometime this week. Read the Bible reading and read the story from Suddenly. Have a look at some of the notes that I've put there in the questions and see how Jesus removes the labels that either you've imposed on yourself or other people have imposed on you and takes you from doubter to believer. I've got to tell you, I cannot call Thomas doubting Thomas. At the end, probably without even having to touch Jesus, even though Jesus stands in front of him and says, "Here I am, Thomas, touch me." We're not told that Thomas touched him. But in response, this Thomas, he just cries out, "Jesus, you are my Lord and you are my God." I call him confessing Thomas, courageous Thomas, believing Thomas. Whatever you've labelled yourself by, the Holy Spirit is going to compost it and bring you out as precisely the opposite. Have fun going through the notes. Have fun praying, saying, "Hi, Dad." Have fun engaging with your kids. And remember, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. See you next week.